Popping beautiful people. Anthony Tay checking in for a solo episode today. Today, I am simply going to speak my mind. Um, you know what? The Tate brothers might have had it right. And while I don't stand for everything that they speak about, you know how they always talk about like the Matrix? I'm like, what are you talking about? The Matrix? Like, I didn't get it, right? Because the Matrix to me is like this really weird, random, like calamity almost of just like shit. Like it doesn't really mean anything. Meaning like if you've seen the movies are they kind of make sense, but then kind of don't. Like they live in an alternate reality, but then they also live in the Matrix, right? And so life has a really weird way of putting you in like a trance, right? Because you wake up, there's very few people that wake up somewhat carefree. Even if they say they do, they still wake up carefree and then they start thinking about shit they have to do. Then they start prioritizing, planning, stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. But if you think about the world that we live in, especially the United States, right? I had to pause because I was about to say something that was going to ruffle some feathers. First of all, you have to know I'm a veteran, right? I served in the United States Coast Guard. Some of the best years of my life. I did not like the government during that time. I don't like the government now. I don't think you have to like a government in order to serve your country, right? And I know people hop on here and say, you know, Coast Guard's not the real military. Whatever. We're the smartest of the bunch. So I'll lead with that. But I don't necessarily know how free we truly are. And here, stay with me, right? Don't jump ahead of me and be like, well, you can walk down the street and do whatever you want, not have to worry about being bombed. Like, yeah, you're right, I do. But like, I'm gonna start off on just a list of topics that I've started looking at for the bigger picture and bigger than what they actually are, right? First thing we're gonna talk about is banks. Banks, right? I don't understand banks at all. I really don't. There are these organizations that somewhere along the line we decided that we needed these institutions to hold, manage, and disperse our money that we have, that we make, right? I'll start off with the first example. Square, for instance. I use Square for some business stuff. I had a transaction that came through and immediately they were like, hold on, we're going to see what this is about, right? And I'm like, all right, cool. Typically takes one business day. Tell me why they held almost $8,000 from me for over 12 days. I got zero correspondence, zero requests for information. Anytime I called, they said, just wait. The fact that somebody can take money from you and hold it to investigate it for whatever reason, they say it's for my protection, right? I don't need you to protect me. Not like that, I don't. Like, if anything, if I'm spending money, if money is coming off of my debit card that I'm spending, hey, is this you? Yeah, that's me. All right, bet. We got you, right? I'm not even done with this one. So, and it was crazy, right? Because luckily, at the time, like I could afford to wait for that money, but unfortunately, like not everybody's in that position to be able to wait for almost $8,000 when that's how they make their living, right? So I was extremely, extremely frustrated by that whole process. I didn't understand it. Fast forward, it happened again like 2 weeks ago, right? It wasn't even that much. It was like $200. They were like, we're going to hold this for a day just to make sure it's, you know, it's not something it shouldn't be, right? And obviously, I know I'm not stupid. I know there's banking laws, banking regulations, all this other shit. But at what point as a society did we say, all right, cool, we're okay with this, right? If I come up to you and I hand you cash and I say, hey, here's this cash, I'm going to put it in your hand, right? Then I'm going to take it back and I'm going to be like, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm going to investigate this a little bit just to make sure I'm going to protect you, right? The fuck for? You know, I don't need your protection to verify a transaction. I don't need you for that, right? So there's the first one. And I know if there's bankers in here or if there's like lawyers, like financial lawyers that know what this shit is, just think about it, right? Like, why does it even exist to begin with? Some people will say it's for consumer protection, right? I don't feel protected when a bank holds money that I worked for that I belongs to me. I don't feel protected by that at all. I'll digress from that. The second occurrence happened a few years ago as well when I was banking with Prosperity. Prosperity declined the transaction. So then I had to call because they didn't text me, they didn't email me. Because normally, like, especially with like Chase, Capital One, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, even like they'll text you, be like, "Hey, was this you?" You say yes. All right, cool. Run it again. Bet. Done. Prosperity, no call, no text, no email, no nothing. Just wasn't going through it. I'm like, I have plenty of money in here. I know it's there. I don't know what the issue is. So I have to call them, right? It's on a weekend. They're like, well, we need to wait until our back office gets back in on Monday. I'm like, the fuck you do? Like, this isn't a joke, right? Like, this is my money. It's there. It's not fake. I've already done your verification because they put you through the ringer, right? They're like, what's your social? What's your this? What's your secret password? What's your secret PIN? Whatever that shit is. And then at the end of that, they're like, well, we need to wait until the back office gets in on Monday. I'm like, no, you don't. Because at this point, like, I don't have any other option. Like, this is what I have. It's like I'm begging, right? It's like I'm begging for my money. It's already mine. It's already there. Why am I having to beg you for it? Right? Like, I don't like that concept. I truly, truly don't. And with enough fussing and with enough arguing, I was finally able to get to whatever supervisor was on duty that day, and I was able to get what I needed to get done. But it took me almost like 2 hours just to get all of that accomplished, right? The other thing that happened to me before, no, this did not happen to me. This happened to somebody that I know. Now, the circumstances surrounding it, I have no clue. Not going to speculate, whatever it is. But a bank closed their account without warning, without notice, without anything, and held their funds for 120 days. 120 days. And it wasn't a small amount either. I will tell you that. It was a large amount of money that they held. 120 days. I would go on a rampage if somebody held that much money from me for 120 days. I don't care what's going on. Figure it out. Give me my money. It's mine, right? Like, it's not a joke. You didn't loan it to me. It's not a loan that I was supposed to repay. It is my money that I put in there for you to just hold and for me to be able to receive it when I want it, right? You could never tell me that you're going to hold hundreds of thousands of dollars from me for 120 days. Like, I will rob a bank. I will rob a bank of my money that I put with you in order to prove a point. I wouldn't do that because I don't have the balls to do some shit like that. But if I could, I would. So, all going back to like this whole matrix complex, right? And like the freedom and that we think that we have. It's like banks have so much leverage over our finances that it seems unreal that we just willingly allow it to happen, right? Like, it's almost like you walk into it being guided by media, government, advertisement, stuff like that. And you're like, okay, yeah, it seems like a great idea. Until something happens and you're like, well, wait a second, like, this doesn't make any sense. I've already given you this money to hold on to for me. Now I need it to eat because I'm paying for my meal. And you're telling me I have to wait until Monday for somebody from a back office to come in and fix it? No, give me my fucking money. Like, it's not a joke, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is this whole concept of at-will employment, right? Accountability for an at-will employment company is zero, right? And I saw a TikTok from a girl, I can't remember her name, but she basically recorded herself getting fired, right? She was fired by, I believe, like a VP or a CEO and somebody from HR, two people that she had never seen before. Nobody from her team, her direct supervisor wasn't involved, nothing. And the excuse was basically, well, this wasn't it was an at will employment type deal, right? Well, when you have at will employment, like you have no accountability for anything. You can take somebody's security and say, okay, here's our offer of employment. Here's what we're going to offer you. And you feel happy, you're elated. You tell your friends, you tell your family, you're excited. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it has nothing to do with your performance. It has nothing to do with your attitude or your attendance or anything like that. It has everything to do with the fact that they just thought better of it. And they're like, well, financially, we probably don't need you anymore. So now that security that we offered you is now gone. You don't have time to find another job. You don't have time to call somebody and be like, hey, can you put in a reference for me? You have none of that. They're just like, all right, we're done. Peace out. I'll see you later, right? Peace up, A-Town down. Usher on 101. Anyways, I don't know what the fuck that was. Sorry. But it's crazy, right? Because it's happened to me before too. And here's what I've learned. It happened to me once years ago, probably 7, 8 years, maybe even 6, 7 years ago, something like that. And since then, every job that I've taken, I keep a written log of everything, things that I've accomplished, merits that I've made, times that I arrive, times that I show up, times that I call out if I ever have to. Typically, I don't have to, but I will, just to make sure that if that ever happened again and HR said, hey, we're going to fire you because of your performance, right? I'm going to be like, okay, well, what performance are you talking about? Because here are my metrics that I have, my proven metrics that I can prove. So where did I drop in my performance, right? So flash forward, I had a job as the director of public safety for an organization in downtown. And first of all, it was the weirdest experience for me because it wasn't a job interview. I never interviewed for this job. It was the weirdest thing. Like I interviewed for a chief of public safety position a year before this. And then I got a call a year later from HR and she was like, hey, this is what we're thinking, right? So we get on the phone, we kind of just consult and I did this for free. I didn't charge anybody for any of this, which normally I would. We start consulting of like a training position, right? And then all of a sudden she was like, well, what about this, right? What about the director of public safety, making that a position? I'm like, that's cool, right? So we kind of go back and forth on like trying to make out what it is. She gets me like a draft of, the job description. I look it over. I'm like, yeah, this is great. At this point, like I had never been offered like a job. I had never been said like, hey, can you come in and interview this, right? I essentially like helped craft the position kind of from scratch. Next thing I know, I'm being told that I need to come in. She wants me to come in and talk to the chief of public safety. And I'm like, all right, cool. What are we talking about? Like, she was like, well, I just kind of want to see like, how you guys get along and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right, bet, let's do it. So I go on, I meet with the guy. We just talk, right? I'm not treating this like a job interview. I'm just treating this like I'm just talking to this dude like, hey, this is what I think should happen. Because I'm a big advocate on knowledge. I'm a big advocate on training, right? Especially in law enforcement and security. I will advocate for training because that's how you avoid incidents, right? I want proactivity. I want to be proactive and not reactive in that right. So I was like, yeah, I think this is, a good path. I think this is what you guys should do, blah, 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 blah. Get home a couple days later. Hey, so we would like to offer you this position. I'm like, okay. And I kind of negotiated some stuff back and forth. And I told them, I was like, hey, I'll take it under these circumstances. During the summer, I need Mondays and Fridays work from home because I've got kids and I was not expecting to go into work full time at any point, right? Like I've always been an entrepreneur. That's kind of like what I like doing. So I was like, I need Mondays and Fridays off. And I know that sounds weird, but I said this before I even accepted a job offer, signed an offer letter, right? And then I was like, I've got 2 trips coming up, one in June and one in July. And I was like, as long as those terms are met, I can agree to the terms that you're proposing. Took about a few days maybe to come back to me and said, okay, we're agreeable to your request, right? So I was like, all right, cool, bet. I go in and immediately, first of all, this is a position that never existed. So I'm like going into this just with an open mind, very observant. I'm trying to figure out like what it is that I can do to make this organization more fluid, make it better, make things make sense, right? and everything is going fine. I have no conversations with anybody. I have no conversations with my boss, who's the chief of public safety. Any conversation we had was always positive. It was very collaborative in nature. Never any negative feedback. The only time I ever got told something was we were in a conversation in behind closed doors, and he goes, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Do you want to be here?" And I said, "Of course. Why, why would you think otherwise?" He said, "Well, you said something. Um, I think it might have been like a round table or something, or maybe something more personal. I don't remember the setting that it was said, but I said something along the lines of I wasn't looking for a job, right?" And I think I said it one time. I didn't really think about how that would impact the people around me. I was just kind of like, oh, well, it might have even come off a little bit cocky. Like I wasn't really looking for a job, but here I am. And so I was just kind of like, I do want to be here. I was like, I apologize for how that might have come off. But other than that, I mean, yes, I do want to be here. I was very proactive in my approach to everything. I made sure I talked to anybody, talked to everybody, had the conversations with supervisors, leadership, whatever it may be, right? Go on my first trip. Everything's copacetic. Then come July, I go on my second trip. Mind you, up until this point, nothing was said. There was no bad energy, no negative conversations, no, hey, we really need you to pick this up, or we really need you to do this, or we really need you to do that because you're kind of like slacking or whatever. So then come July, I'm on my vacation, and this is a vacation that was so freaking disastrous for so many reasons. Me and my wife were fighting. My truck got stolen from the airport, and I got fired all in the same trip. It was crazy. And we were supposed to be in this magical place, and the shit was just a joke. Anyways, I get a call from my boss. He's like, "Hey man, gotta talk to you." I said, "What's up?" This is how he talks. He's like, "Hey man, I gotta talk to you." I said, "What's up?" He goes, "Hey man, we gotta let you go." I kind of laughed it off at first. I was like, "All right, cool. So what's up?" He's like, "No, I mean, we gotta let you go, man." I was like, "Come again?" He's like, "Yeah, man, we gotta let you go. I got HR on the phone right now to answer any questions that you have." So then I'm like, "Yeah, like explain this to me, please. Let me know what's going on." And she proceeds to tell me that it's because of my attendance. Mind you, all of this is coming before I accepted this position. I was like, I need these days off. And this was only for the summer. This is only for June and July. And then come August, it was going to be Monday through Friday, right? They were totally cool with that. And at no point did they ask me before this to amend that schedule. And even if they asked, I might have done it. I might have been like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it. I'll see what I can do and I'll make adjustments or whatever. So she noted my attendance. So then I went back and I looked as we're talking in my notes, right? I do this like I'm writing the shit down. We're in the digital age. I write it in my phone. So I look at my notes and I'm like looking at my attendance and I'm like, and I'm responding back to this chick. I'm like, no, that's not it. Like, there's no way that my attendance has anything to do with any of this. I'm there every day that I say I'm going to be there. I either arrive super early and I leave within a reasonable time between 2 and 3. So I get there at 7, leave between 2 and 3. Or if I get there after like 8:30 or 9, I'll leave at like 4, maybe 4:30. If I have to leave at 5, I will. But Dallas to Frisco is a long transit. And if you know, you know. So I'm like, all right, that's not it. Like, what is it? And then at this point, she gets clammed up, right? There's nothing that she's telling me that's making any sense whatsoever, right? So I'm on the phone going back and forth with these people, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like, see you later. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever you need to do. So then I started to speculate, right? Like, I started taking in my surroundings around me, and this is speculation. This isn't fact. This isn't proven. This is my personal opinion. So I have tattoos, right? I got tattoos on my hands. I got nothing, inappropriate. This is like some Samoan stuff. I've got numbers, which is the birth years of my children. It had to be you, which was something between me and my wife, but nothing like inappropriate, right? But every meeting I went to, I would always see people above my boss looking at me, looking at my hands, to the point where I almost got insecure about it. Like, I would put my hands like down in between, like under the table, so people wouldn't look at my hands, because without that you can't see them. And so I was just like, maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe public perception, because this is a public organization. maybe the perception was not what they wanted. But again, mind you, like I spoke to these people in the beginning of my tenure there and it wasn't ever brought up, right? So then I kind of leave it alone for a minute. And then I was like, let me just check to see who got hired, right? Then I looked and it's another. So the chief of public safety was a former guy from DPD. The director of public safety is another guy from DPD, retired. So I'm like, speculation at this point, but I kind of put two and two together. My theory is that he knew his buddy was getting out or retiring, whatever. Hit him up, like, hey man, you got anything for me? It's like, no, not yet. Well, hold on, maybe. And then that happened, and then now he's in that position. Whatever. Either way, the whole idea of at will employment to me is bogus. I'm like, dude, not only do you have the power to completely ruin somebody's life, you also don't have to answer for it. I hate that shit so much, right? I really truly do. Now, if you need to fire somebody for performance, meaning like you have verified metrics of like, okay, I sat down with Katie on March 1st of 2022 and I gave her 2 months to improve her performance, March, April, and then we met on May 1st, right? Between those 2 months, her production actually went down. At that point, you have something on paper to say, at this point, we can't use you because you essentially can't follow directions or you don't have the proper motivation to be successful with this company. But to just wake up one day and say, hey, we don't want you to work here anymore. Not for any other reason other than we just don't want you to. That shit, in my opinion, is cowardice. You can't treat people that way, right? And this is why I believe the rat race, the matrix, all this other shit is so relevant and valid. There are some people that are so happy to go work for an organization and just stay there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever. More and more as the generations start to get more and more aware and less patient, I feel like corporate America is shrinking to a very minimalistic environment, meaning like long gone are the days where a 20-year-old will go work at Chase and stay at Chase Bank for 30 years. He'll get there and be like, well, I can start an online hedge fund or an online cryptocurrency or an online this or an online that. And with social media being so relevant and prevalent in marketing and e-commerce and, making money on the side and side hustles and yada, 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 like you find me a 20-year-old that doesn't want that independence and I will show you a very unique individual. Either way, I feel like it's just all part of this psychological programming of like, working for a corporation or an organization is necessary to be happy, to be safe, to be secure, whatever it is. That's another thing, right? The whole mindset of safety and security. How can you sit here and tell me that, oh, I got a job, I told my family, I'm so excited, and then they say, you don't work here anymore? How is that safe? How is that secure? There is no such fucking thing as job safety and job security. It does not exist. You can be safe and secure. And even then, God forbid a recession hits, right? COVID happened and shut the entire world down. Everybody took a hit. Everybody took a hit. There wasn't safety there either, unless you were creative and figured out a way to make money during that time. And that's when social media blew up. I'm just saying, there's other ways to be safe and secure other than just working your life away for a Fortune 500 company or whatever. This happened to me recently. I started working for a company, and all of a sudden it's like, can't really afford you anymore. Don't have a lot of work for you. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, like, I'm not really doing well right now. So what am I supposed to do? I didn't say any of this, but at the same time, I'm like, whatever. And then I see some dumb shit on social media and I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. Anyways, I'm gonna digress from that subject or else I'm just gonna keep going about it. So the last thing, and this is going to be a short one because I could really go into some shit with this, is the legal system, right? The judicial system. Now, mind you, I've got a really strong background in this. And so when I speak on it, it's speaking from knowledge and experience, and then also a little bit of an opinion. My biggest thing is this is the topic I'll focus on, right? Bias, racial bias. How do you eliminate racial bias? And I've thought about this. I've written a paper on it before too. You pull over as a law enforcement officer, right? And mind you, my background will allow me to speak on this. I attended FLETC 2 times, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, once at Glencoe, once in Charleston. The mechanics of an arrest, the use of force continuum, the psychology of somebody who is not in their right frame of mind are things that I am very, very familiar with. I was fortunate enough to give multiple lectures at the Center for Brain Health to the Dallas Police Department on certain characteristics on what I'm about to speak about, right? Racial bias is one of those things that exists, and it completely cascades from the top to the bottom, right? You see it all over social media. You see it all over the streets. You see it in your back fucking yard, right? If I pull over a black man, right? This dude is disrespectful. He's not breaking the law. He broke the law by speeding, right? Went 85 into 80. That's the law that he broke. But he's not breaking the law by telling me how he feels. He's not breaking the law by calling me a name. He's not breaking the law by telling me that he wishes I wasn't around anymore. He's not breaking the law by doing any of those things. But I don't like it. I don't. I also have had a lot of bad experiences with black people in the past. I'm going to give this dude a ticket, right? All done. 10 minutes later, I pull over a white lady. Same thing, 85 and 80. This woman is pleasant. She's nice. She's a little sarcastic, has a little bit of an attitude. Not nearly as bad as the last guy, right? I'm going to give you a warning. You tell me right now on paper how that does not set somebody up for racial bias, right? And that's the basic version of what I'm talking about. That's not the more complex version that I could go into, but I'm not going to. That's the basic level of racial bias when it comes to policing and the legal system in general in America, right? Judges have so much power, it's terrifying. It is absolutely mortifying how a judge can have the power that a judge has. Same thing with the jury. Like, I get, jury of your peers, so on and so forth, but at the same time, it's like somebody on the jury is a cashier at the Piggly Wiggly, and those still exist, by the way. And they're gonna have the fate of they're gonna have your fate in your hands. That's not as much of like an issue that what I was speaking about to begin with is, though, but I feel like that it will play into it. If I went into more detail about it, it would make more sense. But since I'm not going to, scratch that from the record, please. Anyways, policing in America, racial bias, so on and so forth. Like, it just, I don't think the policing system in America, and it's different. It's different for every state. It's different for every city. It's different for every precinct. They all have their own separate set of shit, right? I've always said, and I think, obviously from a logistical standpoint, this would be a fucking nightmare, but there needs to be a standard of policing in America across the board, right? Whether it's a number or whether it's something that's less based on environmental factors that allows police to have a fair shot at not seeming racially biased, unless they are racially biased. Then there's no helping them. But then there needs to be a system in place to be able to catch those people and push them out, right? I don't know why I put this one in there. I think I was just going on a rampage in my head. By the way, as a neurodivergent person, I have a constant dialogue going on in my head. I know that neurotypicals don't, and y'all are weird because I don't know how y'all live in such silence because I can't fucking do it. Anyways, when I started this, I said something about the Tate brothers, right? There's a lot of stuff that they say that I don't completely agree with. But when they talk, like for instance, like even their legal situation that's going on in like Romania, I read into it quite a bit as much as I could. It doesn't make sense to me at all. It really truly doesn't. And he's like, oh, the Matrix is out to get me. I'm like, all right, well, that sounds crazy. And obviously the man's not referring to the Matrix as a real thing, but it's like I sometimes I think about like the simulation that I feel like we're in. What does it mean? What is it for? Why do we do it? Right? Like I said, the banks, the at will employment, those are just two topics. There's so much more that I could expand on that I'm not going to because I don't have time. I'm really hungry and my food's sitting right there and it's like been staring at me this whole time. But what's the answer, right? I truly don't know. Like I tried, this shit happened to me. I'm gonna cut it off after this. This shit happened to me the other day. I don't even know where I was. I walked in somewhere and I had cash, right? I didn't have my car. I didn't have my wallet with me. And my phone I left in the car. So I took $20 into the place to get what I needed. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't accept cash. I'm like, the fuck? Why? It's legal currency, right? Like that is mind blowing to me. An organization, a company does not take money. I'm trying to pay you. Take my money. Don't argue with me. Don't say I don't take cash. Take the fucking money, right? But either way, it's like, what's the answer to any of this, right? Like, what's the issue? What's the answer to the banks? Deregulate the banks? I don't fucking know. But to tack onto the banking system, the last thing I don't understand about them is the whole overdraft fees thing, right? Like, a bank will say, okay, you don't have enough money in your account to cover this. We're not going to cover it for you. On top of not covering it for you, we're going to charge you to not cover it for you, $35. Or you don't have money in your account. We are going to cover this for you. We're going to charge you $35 for covering it for you, right? That one, maybe I can understand. The one where you don't have money and they're still charging you the NSF fees. Why? For what? Why? How does that make any sense to me? And trust me, I want feedback on this shit. I want to know why this exists. I want to know why this happens, right? And if you're going to read me some shit from a book, I don't want to hear it. I've already read it. I get it. I understand. I've read the terms because I was curious about it. There is nothing that explains why they charge the fee. It's just their policy. It's another way for them to screw you completely. These are the same banks that can completely shut you down without a single word to you and hold your money until they're ready to give it back to you. I ain't got time for it. Anyways, that's all I got today. Anthony Tay, Tay Vision Media. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. If you have feedback, please make sure you comment down below because I do want to fucking hear it. And I will address whatever feedback I get in my next episode with my next guest, who I'm very excited about. Stay tuned. We'll see you guys next time.